if we go back to prior to the industrial and the agricultural revolution, we lived in these small hunter-gatherer nomadic tribes for the bulk of human existence, for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, going back to when we were, evolved out of apes. This is how we'd been living for a very long time. And within those tribes, it would be, a group of 20 or 30 or maybe 50 people. The strong, resourceful, usually males, would go out and hunt for food and furs and, wood to build shelters and all these other things. Basically, the resources for the tribe. Food and shelter, as well as protecting the tribe from predators like lions and tigers, as well as from other tribes who could be potentially dangerous to that tribe. And then there were usually the women, and some of the other males would stay behind, and they would take to cooking the food, taking care of the shelter, raising the children, taking care of the sick and the elderly. And of course, I'm sure some women came on the hunt, but in general, it was the guys, and that's how we lived for the vast majority of human evolution until about 10,000 years ago, in the agricultural revolution, where we invented agriculture, and because of that, we didn't have to live these nomadic lives, chasing the sun and chasing the animals and the seasons where there was fresh fruit and vegetables and all that stuff. We could actually live in we could live through these winters. We could live in stabilized societies because of agriculture, because of grains and rice and things like that. And for the first time, we were able to create, an abundance and a surplus of food. And out of that grew these stable, large cities and societies that we all now live in. But all of our programming is still the same as that primitive human, because 10,000 years is not a long time in the human timeline. It's very short. We're still running primarily on those instincts. And so all that happened is we went from hunting in a jungle for resources, which was food and wood for shelter and furs and stuff like that, to hunting in a concrete jungle for resources. And the resources is money, which gives us food, shelter, healthcare, all these other things, except we're not really hunting in tribes anymore. Okay, we're technically in these tribes in the country that we live in, opposing ourselves to these other vast entities, but this is primarily exists within people's heads. Ultimately, the real hunting takes place in whatever city you're living in, unless you've got an online business like I do, and it's literally the same thing. It's a concrete jungle, except you're not running around with your shirt off and your spear sharpened, because you can't do that. You'd probably end up in jail. But metaphorically, you're still doing the same thing. So the reason the hunter mentality is so important for any guy, whether you're starting your business, whether you're already successful, is because there is no way out. Let me say that again. There's no way out. No way out. The game of life doesn't stop. You can't sit on the sidelines. It doesn't stop till the body drops. And there's no way to sit on the sidelines. If you think you're sitting on the sidelines, all you're doing is losing. It's the same thing with the hunting concept. There is no way out of the idea that food and shelter needs to be hunted. So you can either go out and hunt it for yourself in a business, okay? You can become a sub-hunter for someone else as a salesman. Sales guys are the only guys with jobs that are hunters, in my opinion, which is what I did. Hated it, but learned a tremendous amount. Learned, the most marketable skill in the world, which I think is sales. And you get a small portion off of another hunter's plate, but you get more than the average person does, who's staying at home, tending the nest, so to speak. And that's most people with jobs. They're just eating off, this predetermined amount from a hunter's plate or from a massive hunter, like they're working for a Fortune 500 company, and they just get their predetermined amount of table scraps. But ultimately, their ability to eat and have resources is determined by that company and the owner of that company and the executives that those guys have working for them. If that Fortune 500 company goes out of business, which happens all the time, those people no longer can eat. They're not, just because you have a job does not mean you're removed from the need to go hunt for resources. You're just dependent on other people being able to go and get those for you. And you're also dependent on those people continuing to employ you, as opposed to outsourcing your job to a robot or outsourcing your job to the Philippines, which has happened to millions of people, will continue to happen to many people. So, even when you're working a job, you are not out of the hunting system. And you have two inherent risks with that job. Is one, the business could go under and you don't have control over that. And two, you could get fired. At least with your own business, you can't get fired. With sales, as a sub-hunter, and you're going out, you've got one main hunter and you're going out in a pack with a bunch of these other guys on the sales floor, you earn a bit more and you have a bit more control over your income, which is important. But ultimately, it comes down to there's no way out of the hunter mentality. Okay, there is no way out. You either have to hunt or you either have to get someone to hunt for you. Problem is, it's real hard to live well with someone else hunting for you, because they're going to give you the bare minimum, and your job is always at stake if they're unhappy with you. And the problem is, if you're in your own business and you haven't recognized this, this is something in the last month I've been drilling into my clients' heads, because I've got a couple guys who are not going as hard as they should be on their outbound sales. I work with all types of guys. I work with guys who I work with a guy who owns a bank. I work with guys who are very successful in the startup community. I also work with guys who are engineers, architects, personal trainers, a vast array of people. But if you're running a service business, a high-ticket service business, you're a hunter. So if you're not going out and getting resources, the business is going to fail. That's a fact. And it is a net-sum game. I mean, my business technically would be a net-sum game. If you're buying coaching with me, you're probably not buying it with someone else. But the amount of people I'm able to reach and the breadth of the reach is almost makes it seem like it's indirect. Competition is not a huge factor for me. I'm not really looking at the competition too much. I'm just focusing on what I'm doing. But if I was selling real estate in Toronto, where I came from, it's a very even 10x more clear and apparent net sum game. I either get that deal in the house or another agent gets it. And I probably know the agent's name because he's probably snaked 3 or 4 deals from me before. And if he keeps snaking deals from me, I go bankrupt. That's what it's like in any of these service businesses. Okay. So that's so important to understand. I've got a client who's an engineer or a personal trainer, or an architect, and within that city there's 500 good building companies that build the required amount of new homes for him to be able to get his, for those clients to be a fit. Clients that a fit is a client that's going to be able to give him 10K to 30K a year. And once he gets a client in his funnel and he's working with him, the clients are very sticky because he does a good job, and people aren't apt to replace their designer, their architect. But of those, let's say 500 builders in his state, okay, probably 50 of them right now are unhappy or like not being serviced well enough by their current architect or designer. And that's why we need to reach out to all of those companies to see which of them we can take away from somebody else. It's literally because in those industries, they're almost always working with someone else. So literally there's like 500 hunting grounds, okay, scattered throughout that state. And you have to go out in your car and drive around just the same as if you're going out shirtless with a sharpened spear to go take those resources. Because right now somebody else is eating the food off your table. Some other architect or some other designer is literally eating the food off your table. If they were able to do the same to you, if they were able to come around to your clients and start hitting up your clients and your clients' offices and be able to peel a couple of those clients away off you, they just took half the income out of your plate. If they're able to peel the other ones off, they just took all your income. You're done. It is a net sum game. It's ugly. Okay.